Hi, I'm Patrick Carter, Training Manager for IC Realtime. Welcome to our video series. Today we're going to talk about system design. These are the types of questions you're going to want to ask your client when it comes to designing the right system. IC Realtime doesn't have a lot of SKUs, but we certainly have a lot of SKUs that are specific to one application or another. So the distance between the camera and the target is very important. Lighting is very important. Covert or discrete is very important. We'll talk about some of the different things that you're going to want to ask your client to really help you fine-tune exactly what type of system you're going to need in the first place, and then what cameras are going to fit perfectly into that application. Let's begin. Recently, our friends at Cisco coined an amazing term, the Internet of Everything. They figured that by 2020, there'll be over 250 IP devices joining the Internet every second. What are those devices? Well, a lot of them are home automation systems, IP cameras, as well as fitness equipment, like our Fitbit. You'll also see a great deal of home entertainment, like Sohos and Apple TV joining the Internet very, very soon. So how can you be part of that? Well, as an integration specialist or a surveillance specialist, you're going to be very, very involved in it. The 4 applications with the most growth forecasted is home automation, home security, fitness devices, and of course, entertainment. How many of these are you selling? IC Realtime is an industry leader in 3. So first and foremost, when it comes to specifying your surveillance system is ask your client what it is they want to see. This question often gets overlooked, and you get into a mode where you're making cookie cutter systems. You know a recorder that works really, really well for you, like those NVRs with the PoE already built into them. You have particular cameras that you may be fond of. I always go with a D1300 or a D2000 or a B2000. These are my go-to cameras, but they may not work in every single application. So take the time to sit down with the client and find out what it is exactly they want to cover. Maybe the importance is the front doors. Maybe they're concerned about windows. Well, kind of you got to think like a bad guy. Not often do bad guys come in through the window and take everything out through the window. If they're going to take that widescreen TV, they're usually going out the front door, back door, or garage with it. These might be your areas you want to cover the most. I recently had a dealer who put in an amazing system that covered everything, and then realized after the fact that the client's biggest concern was that Porsche parked in the garage where there was no coverage. So make sure you take the time to ask them what it is you're trying to protect. What's the resolution expectation? Sometimes clients expect 1080p resolution. They want a Blu-ray quality. If you give them anything less, they're going to be disappointed. Sometimes your client's budget may only be D1 resolution, but you'll find products like the AVS that may be able to give them a higher resolution at the same cost. What camera type are they looking for? There are different applications where you would want a box camera or perhaps a bullet or a dome or even a PTZ camera. Do you want the camera to be a deterrent or do you want it to be discreet? I myself have a very large camera out in front of my house. I'm hoping the bad guys drive by and think the neighbors have nicer stuff. That camera itself is a deterrent. Having a video system really can act as a deterrent. But some homeowners, for example, or business owners may want discrete cameras. They want cameras that you have to do a double take and go, oh, there's a camera there. That is a deterrent versus a discrete camera. We'll talk in a minute about lenses, but there are definitely 2 different flavors, a fixed lens versus a varifocal lens. Some applications, a fixed lens is just fine. Other applications, you want to look at a longer distance or have a better angle, then a varifocal lens may be your choice. How many of your cameras are indoor or outdoor? We have cameras that are rated for indoor only. We have cameras that are rated for both indoor and outdoor. What are the environmental conditions? Are you in an area that gets a lot of snow? Are you in an area that gets a lot of rain? You may want to plan accordingly when you're installing your cameras for the elements. We have several cameras, for example, the iSniper series that has wide dynamic range on steroids. That's an analog camera that sees light very differently than the rest of us. A really bright day, this camera filters through it perfectly. A really snowy, snowblind kind of field, a normal camera with regular WDR may not be able to filter through that, but the iSniper certainly will. Think about an application like a warehouse where you've got really funky halogen lighting to begin with, then you open that bay door and the natural light comes pouring in. An iSniper camera is perfect for that application because it does filter the light a lot quicker and better. Most analog cameras may take 5 minutes or so to adjust to that lighting change. An iSniper will take about 2 seconds. How much light is available during the day and at night? Most of the time your installers are going to be speccing the camera job during the day. They may not know what the lighting conditions are at night. So often we'll hear from installers that say, man, the cameras look amazing during the day, but at night they're just not picking anything up. That's because when you spec the job, you didn't ask what the lighting conditions were at night. Definitely take that into consideration. Come back by the site at night and see what the landscape lighting is like, or if they have flood lighting. Ask the client if their lighting is on a timer. Maybe it's really bright out until a certain time and then it gets completely pitch black dark. Again, we'll talk about IR here in a second. Do you need a vandal-proof camera? A lot of school applications and government applications specifically require a camera to be vandal-proof. What does that really mean? Essentially, it means that the camera can take a little bit of abuse and not fall apart. It's traditionally a more ruggedized camera, traditionally made out of steel. The lens itself and the dome could be made out of a much tougher polymer product to help support any type of abuse. What's the longest distance between the furthest camera and your recorder itself? In an analog system, that really matters. You can only run a cable so far. In an IP environment, Cat5, Cat6 cable, you're limited to about 325 feet on each run. So you may find that you're going to need to put a hub or a switch somewhere along that line, or maybe even a signal booster. But that'll help you determine exactly what type of project you're going to use. What are the cameras mounting to? This is real important. A lot of our sales guys get out there and they go, yep, you need a camera here, here, and here, but they don't take into consideration what the cameras are actually mounting to. Is it a soffit mount camera? Is it going onto wood? Is it going onto cement? You want to make sure you have the right tools when the installer gets out there. We recently had a client who was doing an install on a slate wall. Literally, as soon as he would drill a hole into there, the whole slate would crumble. So it certainly wasn't a good idea to do wall-mounted cameras at this location. Fortunately, we were able to scramble and mount all the cameras on the soffit. What if a location has marble? That's a whole different consideration when you're talking about installing cameras. As you're speccing the job, make a little note of what it is the cameras are mounting to. It will make a big difference in the end. How will you power your cameras? Most of our IP cameras have power over Ethernet. In fact, our 2012 series do power over Ethernet Plus, which is a little more robust PoE. Our intercom system uses a unique power system as well. Most of our analog cameras can be powered over traditional 12 volt or 24 volt adapter, as well as a power distribution box. Power is a very important thing to calculate when you're setting up your job. There's nothing worse than underpowering or overpowering a job. We've run into scenarios where cameras will look amazing during the day, but at night the IRs won't even come on. Because who designed the power specification for that job was thinking about the daytime draw of that camera, which may be something around 300 milliamps. However, when the IRs kick on, it may jump up to 750 milliamps. There's just not enough power to power up those IRs. So always, as you're calculating power, take the worst case scenario. If your camera has a heating element to it, certainly calculate that in. If you're working with a PTZ camera, use the power that's used, the draw that's used when the camera is actually in motion. This will make a world of difference when your power calculations come out. How much record time do you need? Of course, record time is the key to what you're trying to accomplish. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is really nothing more than a hard drive recording a bunch of cameras. Your client wants a certain amount of video evidence, and that expectation may be very large. They may want a month worth of recording. They may only want a week or two. We have an amazing storage calculator on our support site. You can go right to support, and the storage calculator is on online tools. It will tell you exactly how much hard drive space you're going to need for a certain amount of cameras at a certain resolution. Resolution has a humongous impact on exactly how much hard drive space you're going to need. Just by lowering the frame rate a little bit, lowering the resolution a little bit, will make all the difference in the world in how much storage you have. You can calculate that right in the calculator. We'll talk a lot more about encode settings when we get to our menu part of the series. Are you integrating or not? I work with a lot of home automation experts who work with lots of big integration companies. Crestron, Savant, Control4, RTI, Universal Remote, Elan G. The list continues to grow every year. These guys require specific hardware. They need more robust servers. They need more robust recorders. They need certain cameras that work much better in their environment than maybe other recorders or other cameras. So just be aware. Ask the client, are you doing any type of home automation? Are you planning to do some home automation later on? Keep in mind, this may not just be a residential problem. Many corporate environments will wire up their conference rooms with a Crestron server, for example, or Savant devices so that they can control the drapes or control the lighting. So home automation isn't just for homes anymore. Now we're seeing a lot more of it in the commercial application. So be prepared. Do they need room to grow? Unlike back in the old PC days, we can't just add more cards to get more cameras. If you purchase a 16-channel unit, it's going to support 16 cameras. If you support 128 cameras, you need a 128-channel unit. Be prepared for growth. A lot of times we'll talk to clients and they'll say, well, this is what I need for this phase. Think about phase 2 or phase 3. You may need to put in a 32-channel unit for an 8-channel system or for an 8-camera system and have room for growth. So always forecast for them. A lot of times your end users aren't going to be thinking about the future as much as you will, and they'll really thank you for it later. Bandwidth considerations. Of course, bandwidth is very important when it comes to viewing. We'll talk a lot more about encode settings in the menu series, and we'll talk about how mainstream versus extra stream will have a direct impact on your bandwidth. We can certainly adjust bandwidth. So the question a lot of our installers will get is, well, how much bandwidth do I need? The answer to that question is pretty simple. As much as you can give me. We'll take the bandwidth that's provided to us and we will manage the cameras in such a way that it'll stream out perfectly. This impacts not only the local network as well as the remote access and remote viewing. Again, the storage calculator that's on our support site has an amazing tool built into it. It'll tell you exactly how much bandwidth is going to be required for each camera as well as the project in general. And again, we'll talk about that later. How are you remotely accessing these cameras? IC Realtime has some amazing tools. In fact, we have 3 applications that are available. The ICRSS Pro, the IC View, and the IC720 app, which are all available on iTunes or Google Play or the Windows Store. These applications will allow you on your handheld device to view your cameras remotely at a very good price. Having enough bandwidth is definitely important when it comes to that. Seeing a grainy pixelated image because you have an ADSL modem at the location really will make a big difference on their remote viewing. We also have several other tools like our Smart ICRSS application, which will allow you to see up to 50 recorders simultaneously. There's a PC and a Mac version of that available on our website for free. You can download this software. It'll allow you to do all the functionality you would normally do remotely right in that application with multiple units. It's pretty impressive. Again, we'll talk about that in the next series. Understanding how the cameras will be viewed and what their design is very important. Is there a guard shack who's going to be viewing these cameras? Is it just a homeowner? How the resolution is set coming out of these cameras is going to make a world of difference when it comes to how you design the system. So again, we'll talk more about that later, but I want to make sure that you understand all of these principles. Let's talk for a minute about infrared. What infrared is? Essentially, infrared is really nothing more than generating ambient light. In fact, it works best in environments where there's no light at all. A very dark area with IRs works very, very well. If you have some sort of landscape lighting or some sort of flood lighting, it will definitely impact your IRs. Another important factor with IRs is it needs something to reflect back off of. Many of our installers will take infrared cameras and point them straight up in the air or out onto a field. And there's nothing for that light to hit and come back to the lens with. So you always want to make sure that you're pointing at something, be it a vehicle, a door, a wall, a gate. Infrared works best when it can see something, it hits it, the light comes back into the lens of the camera, and it can work with that. More IR is always more better. Keep in mind that you can flood an area with IR besides the IR that's on the cameras themselves. We have several IR illuminators in our arsenal that we can utilize to light up an area. I often will put one camera to the left and one to the right to be able to actually see a large area. The infrared will actually reflect back into each camera. You're flooding a driveway with light. That's a great solution. Keep in mind your IRs can work during the day as well. If you have an overcast, cloudy day, your IRs can kick on. Certainly once they reach that light threshold, they can activate. Also keep in mind, like I mentioned before, IRs do draw a lot of power. Sometimes twice the draw as the camera would normally have. So please keep in mind as you're doing your power calculations what the IR draw is, because it will really make a difference. What it isn't, it's not a thermal lens. We certainly have cameras that support the FLIR thermal infrared cameras. They work great in a lot of different applications, but that's not IR. That's actually thermal cameras. So a lot of times there's confusion in that. People will think you're saying IR and meaning thermal, but that's not necessarily the case. Again, IRs are not normally harmful. There's been a lot of debate lately regarding putting IR cameras in nurseries. I think for the most part, if you're not staring directly at the thermal camera or the IR camera, you should be just fine. And again, IR cameras or IRs are not able to just go into outer space and come back. They definitely need something to bounce off of, so please plan accordingly when you're designing your cameras. Let's talk for a minute about lenses. Again, there are mainly two different flavors, a fixed lens versus a varifocal lens. What is a fixed lens? Think about your eyeball, for example. A 2.8 millimeter or 3.6 millimeter lens is kind of like covering one eye. You're able to see about a 90-degree angle on a 2.8 lens, maybe a little longer than that, but that's what you see. As things are further out, you're not going to be able to see them. They're going to be a little blurry, but as things are closer up, a fixed lens is perfect. Think about that for entrances into facilities. Think about that for walkways, offices, any type of room where you just want to fix on an area and stay there. That's what a fixed lens is. Varifocal is a little different. Traditionally, they come in longer ranges. You'll have a 2.8 to a 12 millimeter. So what that's designed to do is look further out. So say 30, 40 feet down the driveway. You want to see a vehicle as it's coming and kind of follow it and stay in focus all the way in. Think about that more like your cell phone camera, for example, where if something's close up, it'll zoom in on it and focus on it very well. As things move further away, it'll focus on those as well. That's essentially what a varifocal lens will give you. Let's talk a little bit about connectivity. The key to a successful install is always including the client's IT staff from the very start. During the pre-planning stages, you want to take the time to find out who manages their network. Is it you? Is it the client's internal IT staff? Is it an outside vendor? Is it the owner's son who's away at college? Somebody manages the network. Somebody's responsible for the routers and everything on the network. Fortunately at IC Realtime, we have an amazing team of engineers who speak nerdy. They understand the lingo that the engineers are trying to give to you. They can translate, tell you exactly what it is we're trying to accomplish, and certainly ease any concerns that their network administration may have regarding cameras on their network. Obviously, we can control the bit rate that they're going to utilize, we can control the bandwidth that they're going to utilize, but having the IT staff on your side from the very start will make your job so much easier. We'll talk about networking here soon in another series, and having the IP addresses and the ports example are going to make a big difference. You're not going to have to figure them out yourself. The IT staff will give those to you. Heck, they'll set up the router for you. They'll forward all the ports that you need forwarded, and you won't have to do anything but plug cameras in. So get those guys on your side right away. It will definitely help you in the long run. As the installer, remember, never unplug anything you don't know. A lot of times you'll find switches full or switches with open ports, and sometimes sometimes you'll think, well, that port's not lit up, let me go ahead and unplug it. You never know what something's plugged into. So always try to find an available open port. Also keep in mind, a lot of network administrators will have dead ports on their switches and they'll unplug a device from it and just leave it. They won't label it. So if you plug into an open port on our switch and you find that you still don't have connectivity, it may just be a dead port. Try to find another one. It will really make a big difference. Finally, never reset a router unless you absolutely have to. A lot of our installers get into the habit of going, well, I don't know the password, let me just reset this thing. That's truly the last resort. We have lots of websites that'll give us default passwords. Obviously, if you're working with the IT staff, they'll know all the passwords that you need for router setup. Always save resetting routers to the very last step because you never know what rules are going to be set up in that unit already. We've had many cases where installers will go in and just reset a router and then all of a sudden the client's point of sale doesn't work anymore, or maybe their credit card processing doesn't work anymore. During the lunch rush, that's not the guy you want talking to you because he won't talk very nicely. So never reset a router unless you absolutely have no other options available to you. Of course, with media, you know we're talking about Cat5 or Cat6 cable when we talk about IP systems. This is important because in a lot of applications you may need plenum rated cable. In some applications you may not need plenum rated cable. But no, there are a lot of options when it comes to Cat5 or Cat6. My personal choice is if you have the funds to do Cat6, please do it. It does have a much tighter throughput. It'll give you a much stronger signal. You're still limited to about 100 meters or about 325 feet, but you're definitely going to see the difference in a Cat 6 over a Cat 5 cable. Please never use a Cat 3 cable. If you have it running in your building, it makes an amazing pull wire. Just tie your Cat 5 onto it and yank it on through. Cat 5 is probably your basic choice. Cat 6 would be your more advanced choice. Leave it at that. When we talk about analog, we talk about Siamese cable. 16.2, 18.2 for your power, and a traditional B&C coax cable for your throughput. Any any Siamese cable will work pretty good on surveillance systems. I get calls all the time, do I need RG6? Do I need RG59? It really depends on how far you're going. And again, as you get into project planning stages and we're figuring exactly how far these runs are, reach out to your rep. They'll be able to get that question answered for you. Play by the rules. This year, the National Electrical Code has specific rules that are written for the surveillance industry. Be informed. The more you understand the rules and the laws that are happening in your industry, the better it's going to make your install. So the National Fire Protection Agency, the NFPA, also has new rules regarding low voltage wiring. Make sure you understand. You don't have to be NICET certified to understand the rules. Pick up a book, take a look at low voltage, see how the rules apply to your industry. The Department of Homeland Security has recently released some white papers regarding surveillance. The recent bombing in Boston at the Boston Marathon is a great example of how local community and the government has gotten involved in surveillance. That video footage was the difference between catching bad guys and not catching bad guys. They see the value of having public surveillance. Like our friends in Europe have known for years, public surveillance makes a difference. So Department of Homeland Security has definitely released some guidelines when it comes to surveillance. Be familiar with that. Know what they're recommending. Just putting a camera out in front of your house may make all the difference in the world in solving a crime in your neighborhood. Fortunately, the bad guys went to a neighbor's house, but you've got it on footage as well. That'll make a big difference when it comes to investigation. We do a lot of work with wireless. In fact, we partnered with Ubiquiti last year to provide an amazing wireless solution with their Rocket series. It's a 5 megabit signal that we can use to push IP streams between buildings and between remote cameras. But when you're working with wireless, be familiar with the FCC rules in your area. Be careful not to put wireless devices anywhere near broadcast towers. You may not even know there's one there until your FCC gives you a call about you interrupting their signal. Also be aware of other types of wireless devices that are in the area that you may interrupt with your cameras. Certainly use separate bandwidth if you can, and use separate codes if you can as well. UL. Underwriter Laboratory has been known for a long time for life safety. They put their seal of approval on a lamp or put it on a device to let you know that it's going to be safe for your home or your business. UL has expanded into a whole new series with the 8128 certification. They've taken IP cameras from different manufacturers all over the world and verified that the specification was accurate to the camera itself. The 8128, or the UL certification for our cameras, has been humongous. We've come out with very top marks in every camera that we've had tested. We'll continue to send our line to UL because not only life safety is important to us, but also knowing that the certification is accurate. Local laws and codes. Be aware of what the local jurisdiction has to say about surveillance cameras. From municipality to municipality, they may have different rules. We know some areas require UL certification on every product that goes in. We know some jurisdictions would much rather see the cable run through conduit or PVC. Other places are okay if you free wire it through the plenum. Be aware of what the local laws are, especially if you're someone who goes out of state for installs. Differences between states could be dramatic. Heck, differences between counties within your own state could be dramatic. So make sure you're aware of what the local laws are when it comes to low voltage wiring, because it will make a difference. Audio. A lot of times audio is a very tender point when it comes to surveillance. Many jurisdictions are okay with audio. They'll allow you to audio any situation. Some states require you to have one person knowing about the audio. So if you put an audio inside of your office, as long as you know it's there, you can bring people in and talk to them all day long and they don't have to know. Other states like Florida, for example, audio is not allowed at all. A lot of people have found loopholes. They'll find local law enforcement who will find the benefit of audio. For example, a bank environment where video is great, but actually hearing the person's voice would make a big difference in the investigation. That'll make a difference. So be aware of what audio laws are. We get a lot of questions every day from different jurisdictions all over the world when it's talking about audio. Can I put microphones in? Can I not put microphones in? The best case scenario is ask your local law enforcement, make sure that it's okay before you do it. There's a great deal of liability in audio. I've seen many opportunities where cases of bad guys doing bad things have been tossed out because of audio. Make sure you know what the rules are, because it's your job as the installer to understand the local laws when it comes to audio recording. Wireless connectivity. What if your location is just too far away to run a wire? A lot of times we'll have installers that will run fiber. Fiber is a great solution, but it's certainly costly, and if you don't work with fiber every day, it can definitely be cumbersome. So wireless comes into play. We use Ubiquiti. It certainly has been a great partner for us for a very long time. They again provide a 5 megabit point-to-point router or point-to-point antenna that's about the size of a remote control. The Rocket series has been very, very good for us with different types of antennas. If we need an omnidirectional or we need a directional antenna, works great. In fact, many of those have PoE built into them, so we can plug the camera directly in and run that out another 300 feet from the wireless device. Talk to your sales rep about wireless solutions. If you already have a wireless provider that you like, you have antennas that you'd rather use, make sure that they're high-end antennas. A traditional wireless just isn't strong enough to push a megapixel signal. So plan ahead. If you have a wireless solution that you like, ping it off to your sales rep and say, is this going to work okay in this environment? When you're plugging in cameras, it matters, especially when you're talking about high megapixel cameras. You may be limited only to a certain amount of cameras at one location because of the wireless access. Let's talk about wireless versus IP systems. A lot of folks have been using analog for a lot of years. Why? Because it works. It's fairly inexpensive. The media is pretty simple. An old timer that's been on your work crew for a while can crimp a BNC connector with his teeth. We don't recommend that. But it's something that's very easy to do, very easy to install. Probably the most important thing with analog systems is compatibility. I can take anybody's analog camera and plug it into my DVR and it's going to work. I can take my cameras and plug them into anybody else's DVR and they're going to come up with some video. Where you run into issues sometimes is with 485 control, but in most cases you're perfectly compatible. What are some of the downfalls? Well, the biggest is resolution. We've all seen those grainy images on the 6 o'clock news. Someone robs a liquor store and there's a grainy picture of them walking outside the parking lot. It almost looks like Sasquatch. You just see a fuzzy, blurry image. Then they zoom into it to give you a tighter view of that, and all you see are a dozen or so big pixels. That's what analog does. Analog, it doesn't fare well when you come to digital zoom. If I zoom into an analog picture, it's going to pretty much get more grainy. But what you're working with resolution-wise is more D1 resolution, and of course in many of our cameras 960H resolution, which is still pretty good for most applications. I get questions all the time of folks who says, well gosh, who uses analog? A lot of people use analog. It's still a big chunk of our business. And IC Realtime will commit to analog, again, making it better with things like the iSniper chipset. Let's talk about balance for a second. When you're pushing a signal a long way over an analog, a lot of times folks will use balance. They'll use a Cat5 or a Cat6 cable in between with 2 pieces of hardware on either side. These come in a couple different flavors. There are passive, which are just connectors. They're not powered. They're not designed for really long runs, but certainly longer than you can traditionally get a Siamese cable. There are active, which are ones that are powered, and of course normally you have power on either end, and that will definitely allow you to go a lot further. In fact, many passive will also pass power across that Cat5 as well. So now you have a single Cat5 cable doing your video and your power. Definitely makes life a lot easier for you in an analog environment. There's also a hybrid. There's a mix. You can put an active on one side and a passive on the other, and they'll certainly get the job done as well. Probably not as far as active and active, but definitely a good application if you're looking at somewhere mid-range. Let's talk about IP. IP definitely is the wave of the future. It's where a lot of our business is going. It's where a lot of your clients are asking for. What are some of the things that you need to know about IP? It certainly runs over Cat5 or Cat6, which is a much more common cable. In fact, a lot of new construction, they'll run Cat5 to every room of the house because they assume you're either going to have a PC or a camera in every room. So Cat5 is definitely abundant. You'll see more and more of that everywhere you go. Compatibility, though, isn't quite as same as analog. When the IP industry first took off, and we were victims of it too, or we were guilty of it too, we made everything pretty proprietary. My cameras would only work with my recorders, and everyone kind of had that mindset. But of course, over time, that didn't really work off very well. So ONVIF was created. ONVIF is kind of a governing body that maintains a database of all the cameras that work well together. We are Profile S, as in Sam, which is the highest level of ONVIF certification right now. Our cameras are certainly going to be way more certified or work better with other ONVIF cameras. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to your rep. We get calls all the time of people who have inherited jobs with maybe an Access camera or a Bosch camera, and they want to know if it's going to be compatible with our recorder. We have the ability to contact them and verify that it's going to work. We can certainly put one of our cameras out on the internet so they can test it with their recorders, as they'll do with us quite often. So look for that ONVIF compatibility. It will really make a big difference in your project. So some of the products that we have that are very unique to IC Realtime are in our IP line. Our IP products feature things like the Umbrella chipset, which is used by GoPro. It minimizes your bit rate, your bandwidth you're going to utilize, as well as your storage on your hard drive. We have a full line of cameras, everything from fixed domes to 360 panoramic cameras that you can actually immerse yourself inside that experience. Presently, we have 1.3 to 12 megapixel cameras. Our 12 megapixel cameras definitely take up a lot of space. In fact, most of those will take up about 5 terabytes per week. So you're going to want to use those in an 8128 or one of our higher end recorders. It just has more room for all that extra recording. Cloud storage is coming soon. We're in negotiations with one of the major cloud providers in the world to provide a cloud service. But our recorders are already ready for it. In fact, our recorders are designed to do NAS and FTP. You can certainly replicate your data out to a remote server like the cloud right now. If you have a cloud service that you're already using and you're very comfortable with, feel free to go ahead and replicate that data offsite if you like. Be aware that sometime around second quarter of 2015, IC Realtime will be launching its own cloud service. We'll be introducing the Ollie, which will be a camera that's very much like a drop cam type scenario where it'll automatically replicate to the cloud. It'll have a small amount of storage on the board itself, but it is an amazing technology. Go to ic720.com to see more about the Ollie. UL 2802 certification is going across the line. Almost all of our cameras have the UL 2802 certification, and I strongly recommend you look for that when your camera selection. The 2802 again certifies that UL has verified the specification of the camera is accurate. If it says it's got an Umbrella chipset in it, they're going to test it to make sure it has an Umbrella. If it says it has a particular IR range or a particular lens range, it's going to certify that. UL 2802 certification is humongous in our industry. You definitely want to be aware of that. And of course, there is a third option, HD AVS. AVS is an answer to HDSDI, which was a really good solution in theory. The problem with HDSDI was the cost. It was very expensive. So it almost made it not worth it to rewire your house. The beauty behind AVS is you run it over traditional Siamese cable. It pushes video, audio, and 485 control across that same coax wire. It goes out to 1,400 feet, so there's no need for balance. It works very well in a lot of different applications where you're doing a retrofit, or if you're already familiar with analog systems and you just want to have something a little more high definition. You choose two paths, 720p or 1080p. Once you've made that choice, you can match up cameras and recorders to either solution and utilize that same Siamese cable. It's pretty awesome. Home automation. How smart is your smart home? A lot of the things that are utilized in home automation systems are camera control, AC control and temperature control, lighting, and video. Camera control is probably the most important in our world because of the fact that it's very convenient to whip out your Savant app and be able to view your cameras remotely. It's very convenient to use things like our door camera system and the intercom system to be able to see exactly who's at your front door right through your home automation system. Many companies are heading in the direction of home automation. It's the wave of the future. Let's talk a little more about that intercom system. It's pretty neat. You have a strict IP-based system using a 1.3 megapixel camera. The door camera itself has an illumination on it that's not traditional IR, it's more like a makeup mirror. When someone rings the bell, it will sound your notification on the inside on any monitor. In fact, each camera will support up to 6 monitors. The monitors themselves are pretty awesome. You can communicate between each one. You can do a lot of sensing, a lot of arming of your Berg system, for example, as well as magnetic door lock release right from the monitor itself. This unit does tie into your NVR, so if you want to tie it into your home automation system, it works great. If you want to record every time someone comes to your door, not a problem. If you want to have it go out to your smart ICRSS application, you can certainly view your cameras from there. Our ICRSS Pro will allow you to view your cameras on your iPad or your iPhone, as well as answer calls. It has push notification that will tell you when someone's at your door. They don't need to know that you're not inside and you're on vacation in Tahiti looking on your iPad. If it's someone who's coming by to water the plants or take your dogs out, you can do magnetic door release right from your iPad. Pretty amazing technology. Let's talk a little bit more about home automation. These are some of our partners that we've used for the last several years with home automation. These partners have particular modules and profiles that are designed specifically for our products. On the analog side, we primarily use our Flex DVR, which is our flagship unit. On the IP side, we use mostly our 8128, our N series, and our MP series when it comes to automation. We tend to use our Umbrella chipset cameras a little more for these automation partners who go directly to the camera itself. This list is growing every day. If you have an automation partner that you're working with that's not on this list, please feel free to let us know and we'll happily work with their programmers to make that module work. We have seamless integration with several VMS applications. Facial recognition is becoming very important. It gives you the ability to see who's at your door and grant them access based on characteristics of their face. License plate information is also very important in gate systems. So we are in the analytic business. We're camera manufacturers, but we do have some great friends. Take Milestone, for example, which is one of the leaders in this industry. We are partners with them. In fact, we've had our engineers out at their facility on the West Coast to learn more about the integration product and learn more about their solutions. All of these partners here, we work with on a daily basis. So if you are doing any type of automation where you are going to need some sort of facial recognition or database storage, if you're using any of these partners, we'll happily work there. Again, if there are any partners that you are working with that aren't on this list, please let us know and we'll be happy to start a friendship with them. There's another video in this series about how to sell IC Realtime, and this slide really covers a lot of that. What are some of the things that make IC Realtime different than the rest? As you're specifying your job, you're sitting down at the table with the homeowner or you're sitting down at the boardroom table with the CEO. These are some of the bullet points that you're really going to want to have on hand. Feel free to make a copy of this slide or write down some of the notes from it. What makes IC Realtime different? First and foremost, that 10-year warranty. There is nothing else in the industry even close to it. Ask our competitors. If they're really proud of their product, maybe they'll give you a 3-year warranty, maybe a 5-year warranty, but no one in the industry has a 10-year warranty. That covers our basic level units, our entry-level products, as well as our high-end products. That's a 10-year warranty. We built our company on the foundation of never charging license fees. We think it's ridiculous for a company to have to charge you every single year for every IP camera you buy, or for a server recorder that allows you to record your cameras to have to pay for each seat of viewing. We never charge license fees, never have, never will. Keep in mind that all of our units are assembled in America. When you purchase your unit, it's being assembled for you that day. Our quality assurance is second to none. Each unit is thoroughly tested as it's being built. Our out-of-box failure rate is less than 1%. That's a pretty good angle. When you're working on a system and you take it out of the box, the chances of it working are very, very good. We're sold only through dealer distribution. That's important. If end users call us, we'll immediately send that lead right out to our dealers in that area. We do not sell to the public, never have. We've got a great distribution network as well as some amazing dealers all over the world that are very familiar with our product. Heck, they've attended our webinars. They understand the product better than we can explain to a homeowner. Our support center is out of this world. The guys here in Florida are here from 9 a.m. Eastern Time till 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., our calls roll over to our Phoenix, Arizona office. Those guys will take your calls until about 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We aren't rolling calls across the pond to our friends in Ireland, but we may soon. We just don't get a lot of calls in the middle of the night. Some of the things they offer that are very unique is a callback service. You have an appointment to be at Mrs. Jones's at 1 o'clock. Hey, shoot us an email in the morning, tech@icrealtime.com, and say, hey, have your guy call my guy at 1:30. At 1:30, his phone's going to ring. Or call in the morning and say, hey, call my guy at a particular time at this number. They will. It may not even be somebody from Florida. It could be someone from Ireland or Arizona, but you're going to get that call back. That's the highest priority we have in our queue. So the callback service will definitely minimize the time that the technician's waiting for a callback when he's on site. We also have weekend support. We have on-call technicians that also do callback services. So maybe that appointment with Mrs. Jones is on Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Not a problem. Let us know Friday. Hey, give my tech a call at this time on Saturday or Sunday. Not a problem. We'll take care of them as well. Our amazing free CMS software. The Smart ICRSS is a great tool. It's available on our support site under downloads for free. There's a Windows and a Mac-based version of it. It's not parallels. It's really a Mac software. It works amazingly well to view up to 50 cameras simultaneously. You can look at 50 recorders. You can look at several different devices all at once. It has the ability to support 6 screens. You can span parking lot cameras on one, your back office cameras on another. You can even use e-mapping, where you bring in a Google image or bring in a floor plan of your facility and look at it right there on the screen. If you need to choose a camera, you click on the camera and that image will immediately appear. It has the ability to do local recording. So if I want to save a file from my recording directly to my PC, I can do that. It's all built into that software for the whopping price of free. Our free DDNS service. Of course, if you don't have a static IP address like most residential applications, you are going to have a dynamic IP that changes on you periodically. Most folks who never log into their homes, it really doesn't matter. The IP address can change and they don't really care. But what if you're logging in from your phone to see what's going on with the cameras at the house? What if you want to check to see if your child made it home from school on time? Having a static IP address is definitely a plus, but they're very expensive. So we offer a free DDNS service. You now have a name associated with your router instead of a number. When that number changes, the DVR will automatically update our server, so it'll automatically push it to the right location. So you log into the name, doesn't matter what the IP address is. That's a free service. Great apps. Again, we have 3 applications. Our ICRSS Pro, which is a fully functional application that gives you the ability to do pretty much everything. Playback, push notification on your intercom system, a lot of functionality. If you don't want that type of functionality, you just want to view your cameras and control your PTZs, not a problem. The IC View app is available for a whopping price of $3.99. You can take that application and view all of your cameras, multiple locations, and control your PTZs. The IC720 app is designed for that gyroscopic technology where you can log into your 360 camera and actually live within the image. Ironically, it works with regular fixed cameras as well. You're looking at a regular image, you can actually live inside that image with the 720 app. It's available for free. Our uniform menu. We are the developers of this menu. It's been the same menu for years and years and years. A lot of times we'll hear from our dealers that work with other brands and they say it's like Christmas morning every time you open a new recorder. You don't know what kind of menu you're getting. It's because a lot of other manufacturers buy whatever is on sale in the open market in China. We don't do that. We actually have our own menus. We have our own Linux-based operating system that we manage. We are the developers there. If we need to make a change, we make a change to it, but mostly it's stuff for the good. We haven't changed the basic design of our menu in a very long time. Another problem with that shareware firmware that everyone seems to want to use is it's very hackable. Last summer there was a great report on how easy it was to hack into recorders using certain firmwares and certain designs. We've always been free of that. IC Realtime is the most secure firmware and the most secure product out there. you're not going to have any kind of problems with hackers when you're working with IC Realtime. Finally, our protected brand pricing. We are very protective of our brand. In fact, most people love the fact that you can't Google our part numbers and find it cheaper down the street. Too many manufacturers have just that problem. You quote a job, the client immediately Googles the part numbers and says, well, heck, I can get it for 20 bucks down the road, or 20 bucks cheaper down the road. You're not going to have that with IC Realtime. Anytime we see a vendor that happens to sell our products for anything less than MSRP, we immediately hop on top of that and put a cease and desist out there. You're more than welcome to advertise our product. We encourage it, but your dealer application specifically says it must be call for pricing or MSRP. That way, when clients do search product, if they do find it on your website, that's going to spark the interest. They're going to call you for a quote. Or they're going to say, my gosh, I can get it a lot cheaper than I can through Amazon or through eBay, because those stores are run by IC Realtime and they do have the MSRP on there. So we do encourage you to make sure that you advertise our product, certainly send out flyers, but always put call for pricing, because that protects all of us. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, I'm Patrick Carter, the training manager here at IC Realtime. Enjoy the video series as we continue it, and thank you so much for your time.